What popular conspiracy theory is the easiest to shut down? My sister used to go on and on about the FEMA coffins. I guess they have thousands of coffins being stored, and the conspiracy theory is they'll cause a disaster for them to be used. The reality of it is very simple. If a natural disaster happens and thousands of people die, there needs to be a place to put the people. We don't just dig holes and make giant graves in the US. These coffins are there because any other supply of coffins does not exist, especially not localized in one area. They probably need them to help get the corpses out after their death squads roll through. You know about the FEMA death squads, right? The theory that they go in after natural disasters to kill more people for some reason. I really like the conspiracy theory that the Dark Ages did not actually happen. Some pope added a few centuries to the date and nobody said anything. Charlemagne is fake history. I did a report on this in high school. It's called the Phantom Time Hypothesis. Basically, the Eastern Roman Emperor Constantine VII, Holy Roman Emperor Otto III, and Pope Sylvester II teamed up and fabricated all of European history between the years 614 and 911, meaning the year they ruled landed on the millennium, which would legitimize the rule of the papacy due to some vague verse from scripture about the church's rule for 1,000 years. Otto put in the story of Charlemagne to associate the HRE with a heroic figure to legitimize the Carolingian line to the throne of the HRE. It falls apart pretty quickly when you take into account the fact that dating techniques have dated archaeological finds to this time period. Also, other civilizations like the Chinese have a trove of astronomical records from this time. Also, we're pretty dang positive the Muslim-Arab conquests definitely, irrefutably happened and were a thing. Rainbows observed from sprinkler, using the city's water, is a naturally occurring phenomenon caused by light refracting through the droplets. It is not reliant on heavy metals. That Starbucks employees write the names wrong on purpose so people will tweet the mistake and generate free advertising. Yeah, a whole bunch of low-level, low-paid employees around the world decided to keep their mouths shut about it. The obvious answer is a combination of, they don't care enough to do it properly, because they make barely over minimum wage. They do it to be funny, because they are bored and like to mess with their co-workers who have to call them out. Serve millions of cups a day and there will be some funny misspelled names. The Paul is dead theory around Paul McCartney. My mom still believes it is true and buys into the even crazier theory that he was replaced by the government to help push LSD as a way for them to control the masses. The Pope is the great beast. His crown does not say Vicarius Filii Dei, it says Vicarius Christi. Therefore, the Roman numerals you can get from the crown do not add up to 666. Ironically, the founder of the Seventh-day Adventist Church, Ellen Gould White, adds to 666 using the same logic. I don't know if it counts as a conspiracy theory, but Bigfoot, the people trying to prove Bigfoot is real are in the woods hanging up donuts and cooking bacon to attract one. Come on. There was a dude who was interviewed about killing Bigfoot's kid or whatever, so my dad got all excited and I watched this interview with him. It was 45 minutes of Bull's history tracking Bigfoot, ending with the dude saying he felt bad so he freaking buried it somewhere in the woods and forgot where he buried the body. Come the frick on. The rule of thumb I go by is if it affects the rich people, it's probably fake. Chemtrails must be fake because the rich and powerful breathe air all the time. I'd say flat earth is probably the easiest to shut down. If you read, watch, and really investigate their arguments, it doesn't add up. I went down the rabbit hole trying to figure out the unifying why that makes FE supporters really believe and take hold of that view. Unfortunately, they are divided amongst themselves. Instead of finding a reason to support a FE narrative, they use a conceptual FE to support some other personal narrative. They blame NASA, Sneerple, aliens, governments, or whatever is their personified villain of choice for manipulating the human race and then toss in a flat earth to justify their fear of the powers that be. Lots of other conspiracy theories have interesting points to debate or research, but I think FE is the easiest to shut down. Also, they all want you to do your own research. They'll never actually show what they've discovered. The trick is to out-conspiracy the conspiracy theorist. Just go one level of conspiracy deeper than they have yet gone. I call it conspiracyception. For instance, there's a guy who used to come into where I work, who is a 9/11 conspiracist. Any piece of evidence, no matter how false, he put forward, I would use as evidence of an even deeper conspiracy to obfuscate what actually happened. Oh, you have images that show demolition charges going off to bring down the towers? Those are fake charges planted to make it look like there were planted charges that brought the building down. Oh, you claim that none of the passengers on the planes were real people because none of their families ever came forward? Those people were all paid off to act like those people were part of some non-existent conspiracy. The beauty of this is its simplicity. No matter what evidence someone puts forward as evidence of a conspiracy, you can claim that this is, in fact, evidence of an even deeper conspiracy, crafted to cover up what actually happened. And what actually happened is what actually happened. In my experience, it works brilliantly, because one of the prime motivators for conspiracy theorists is to not be the one whom is fooled. If you can paint a scenario where all of their carefully researched evidence is, in fact, a smokescreen for what actually happened, you can, at the very least, get them to shut the frick up. Ooh, I like it. You can double down by saying something like, see, now that they've got you digging into this fake moon landing crap, you're distracted from their real crimes and you're no longer a threat? And they get real hooked right there and they're like, what could it be? And you look side to side to see if anyone is listening, and you lower your voice and conspiratorially say, well, the one thing powerful people really want is to stay in power. In bad countries you just get a few death squads to kill your enemies, but here in America you have to be subtle about it. And so all I'm gonna say is, look at the shapes of the congressional voting districts. The truth is in the shapes. Who changed the shapes? And why? And now you've created an anti-gerrymandering monster who will harass politicians and do all sorts of research and legwork that he'll share with reporters and fellow citizens. And it turns out, since there actually is nefarious intent behind pretty much every single redistricting ever, he'll actually uncover conspiracies, which will just keep fueling his righteous fire. The Sandy Hook massacre was a government conspiracy. Easy, just talk to one of the parents and see if you're still standing. Disclaimer, please do not talk to the parents. Conspiracy theories. People who believe in the flat earth theory. Flat earther, the world is flat. Literally anyone, but 6th grade arithmetic. There is so much plain sight evidence for a round earth. You can watch things dip below the horizon, the phases of the moon, lunar eclipses, orbiting satellites in the night sky, the fact that I can't see China from my house. The theory that women can't touch their elbows behind their backs. I've personally confirmed this to be untrue with many women. Probably the one where black people used to be super geniuses who could also fly and use magic, and Africa was an advanced civilization and virtually every important historical figure was black, but then white people, who were inferior to them in every way, somehow managed to steal their knowledge, destroyed their civilization and erased all traces of its existence, suppressed their magic powers, enslaved them, and completely rewrote history. Thanks for spoiling the plot of Black Panther for everyone. That Obama wasn't born in the US, or that it would matter if he weren't. Since his mother was born in the US, he was a naturalized citizen and eligible to run for president anyway. A la Ted Cruz. Natural born, not naturalized. Naturalized means you were not a citizen at birth and became one later, meaning you would not be eligible to be president. That Sandy Hook, Las Vegas, and all the other mass shootings of the last few years were orchestrated by the anti-gun left in order to push legislation to further restrict gun ownership. They have passed almost nothing significant despite this. So you expect me to believe they are using the very thing they want to ban to rack up a body count and still can't get support to ban it? Passed nothing significant. Meanwhile, every time a mass shooting happens, gun sales go up as people feel the need to stockpile. The only ones who win in mass shootings are gun companies and their lobbying arm, the NRA. Chemtrails. You'd literally require airline ground crew at every major airport on the planet to be in on it without anyone talking. That's completely ridiculous. Any that require more than 100 plus to be in on the conspiracy or require rich, powerful people to change their behavior. The general rule is that a conspiracy gets less and less plausible the more people need to be involved in said conspiracy. For example, Flat Earth would need a massive navy to carry out a need to keep scientists, aerospace engineers and physicists quiet. So conspiracies that need a lot of people to carry out will be destroyed. But also conspiracies that involve whole groups of people, including the Jews control the world conspiracy, the every single Muslim is a terrorist out to kill you and they just pretend to be fractured conspiracy, the gay agenda, any conspiracy involving Freemasonry, any conspiracy involving the scientific and medical community, any conspiracy involving the historical and archaeological community. This includes the we have a cure for cancer and are hiding it one in the moon landings. Jet fuel can't melt steel beams. Yeah sure, but steel loses 90% of its structural integrity at 50% of its melting point. There's also a thing hitting the towers that weighs 100s of tons at over 600 miles per hour. Chemtrails. Chemicals that far up wouldn't have any effect on us down here. The smoke is made from ice crystals, and you can easily check up on the planes using the internet, which means you can see and track every plane you see. Really, any attempt on poisoning the air falls apart logically if you believe that whoever is supposedly in power and doing this also breathes air. Mandela Effect. Like the parallel universe part of it, there's so many fallacies with their claims, it's really easy to dispute. My understanding is that the Mandela Effect is seen as a curious oddity of collective memory, and, I'll say most, people don't actually believe in a parallel universe. OJ was innocent and the LAPD were all racists who plotted to bring OJ down because he's black. Common sense alone can just shut that one down in a heartbeat. It's pretty obvious OJ did it and the LAPD tried to frame him. This will certainly get buried. Had a debate with my very conservative friend recently about clean energy versus coal and oil. When I mentioned that we were going to run out of oil soon, he responded by saying that we were going to find oil on the moon and Mars. I absolutely do not kid that he said that. I had a dang good laugh from that. Moon dinosaurs are real, damn it. None of them are easy to shut down. They all rely on unfalsifiable hypotheses or some kind of god stand-in. Take 9/11 for example. It was a government conspiracy. You're saying the federal government coordinated the largest attack on American soil and managed to keep it under wraps when hundreds of government employees would have had to completely compromise their morals to participate and keep quiet after the fact for 17 years. Yeah, cause government, they're powerful and pay people off and assassinate people and crap. And that's what it always comes down to. Some all-powerful vague entity, the villainous they, some omnipotent force with enough money or influence to make it all happen, the god stand-in. You can build a case for any impossible scenario when you explain away the improbabilities where they have the power to do it. There is a cure for cancer but powerful pharmaceutical companies are keeping it hidden. If Steve Jobs couldn't afford it, it probably doesn't exist. The NBA draft lottery is rigged. Then why do small market teams like the Cleveland Cavaliers and Orlando Magic overcome long odds to win a disproportionate amount of the time? Lakers have been bad 5 years in a row yet have never landed the #1 pick, and it's been over 30 years for the Knicks, who started the conspiracy way back when. That doesn't disprove that the lottery was rigged that single time though, which is where most of the controversies come from. I had a friend get indoctrinated by some documentary that was really just vegan propaganda. He tried to convince me at a Five Guys that humans aren't meant to eat meat. Really? Well, why aren't all our teeth flat molars like those of any herbivorous animal? We're sharp in the front, flat in the back. Evolution made us omnivores. I didn't say anything though because I just wanted to enjoy my fabulous burger in peace. My mom watched the same thing and turned vegan for 2 weeks. She tried to argue that the meat industry knew that they were the sole cause of cancer. There are some studies that say eating a ton of red meat could be a carcinogen, but so could tons of other foods, and was bribing politicians' doctors to keep quiet. We laughed at her every time we brought it up, and didn't try to argue with her. We encouraged her in a sarcastic way like, hey mom, tell us again about the meat conspiracy whenever her friends were over. That helped her realize how stupid she was being. That Diana. Princess of Wales was murdered by the royal family. The theory goes that the Queen and or Prince Philip ordered to have her killed because she divorced their son. Prince Charles was no longer tied to the royal family, though she was allowed to keep her title as the Princess of Wales, and therefore behaved in a way that she couldn't as HRH. Dated some people, which included Dodi Al-Fayed, who some believe proposed to her, but there is a big belief within this conspiracy that she may have been pregnant with his baby and that is why they killed her. Anyway, the whole thing is stupid and here is why. It has been proven that, had she worn her seatbelt, she would have survived the crash. No one but her can control whether she does or doesn't fasten her seatbelt. The Queen does not have the power to order an assassination. Hundreds of years ago, monarchs ruled the land, but that ship sailed a very long time ago. If they murdered Diana for being controversial, why the heck is Sarah, Duchess of York, still alive? For any who don't know, Sarah married the Queen's other son, Prince Andrew, but divorced him around the same time as Diana and became a big media interest. The Queen would not, under any circumstances, order the death of her grandson's mother. Prince Philip adored Diana, and even attempted to counsel her and Charles when their marriage started to fall apart. Even if the royal family did have this power, which they don't, they would never commit an act such as this, knowing it would be recorded in public records that would be released decades later. Diana's son, Prince William, will become king one day. Any order for his mother's death would be revealed when he is head of state. Contrary to belief, close friends of Diana claim she wasn't in an active relationship with Dodi Al-Fayed, but was simply spending time with him in a date-like manner, so any pregnancy or proposal would be unlikely. The car that crashed was being pursued by paparazzi. These weren't actors or special agents, they were journalists and photographers. They witnessed the event, and were responsible for it. Any suspicious activity prior to the crash would have been noticed and reported by them, particularly to remove blame from themselves. Here is the big one. If they are going to kill Diana, they have a ton of different ways in which they can achieve it and cover it up. They could drown her and say she slipped in the swimming pool. They could poison or smother her and say she died in her sleep, etc. Why would they ever have chosen to kill her in a way that was highly unpredictable, out of their control, in a public place, followed by journalists and photographers? The flat earth theory is easy, but only if you know the only specific way how to disprove it. I spent years working with a flat earther and discussing the science behind it and how everything works. Typically, those who attempt to disprove it don't understand a single aspect of the theory. People spend too much time trying to attempt disproving it by saying flat earth doesn't have supposed round earth tray X, which is dumb, because obviously, if it's flat, it won't have round trays. Don't compare, contrast. After 2 years of deep discussion, I've found that the only way to challenge the flat earth to a flat earther is with the prime meridian, or basically any measured distance from it to another, and with the southern constellations. The globe contains a series of wedges in it, divided by meridians. These wedges widen in shape at the equator only to shrink again at the next pole, at 15 degrees latitude north. The distance between two meridians is roughly 28 kilometers. At 0 degrees equator, the distance is 111 kilometers. At 15 degrees latitude south, the distance shrinks back down to 29 kilometers. On a flat earth, with those spider-webbed meridians, 15 degrees latitude south would be over 400 kilometers in distance between those meridians, which isn't the case. On a globe, the sky spins a different direction in the south than in the north, and shares different constellations. The flat earthers claim this is due to a double reflection of the top half of a disk above the top of the impenetrable dome that is our atmosphere, as opposed to the bottom half, which is the northern sky. What they forgot is that there's a southern counterpart of Polaris. Double reflection or no, since south is literally in every direction on the flat earth, that southern star would be visible in all directions, but actually, human perception would only allow you to see part of it. TLDR, if the earth were flat, Brazil would be twice as far away from South Africa than Quebec is from England, and there would be a solid shining arc across the entire, relative, southern horizon every night. Jet fuel can't melt steel beams. Whilst technically true, It's based on the false assumption that steel beams have to melt in order for a skyscraper to buckle under its weight. A great example of a strawman argument, because nobody ever claimed that the steel beams in the Twin Towers melted. It was just an assumption by truthers who have no experience in actual engineering. I'm no expert, and all I did was take 1 semester of strength of materials engineering to learn that you only need to reduce structural integrity by 50% for a steel column to buckle, which burning jet fuel is easily capable of. That Hitler escaped Berlin. His jaw was retrieved in 1945 and was independently identified by Western and Eastern intelligence agencies. That ominous bones that turned out to be genetically female were retrieved in 1946 on paranoid Stalin's demands. You don't need a DNA analysis to differentiate between a female and a male jawbone. What about Project Paperclip? I don't think any one person is what we should take away from World War II. A bunch of scientists and engineers who shared Nazi ideologies ended up in the US after the war. If be more worried about them than Hitler. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.